We have a very eminent panel for that. Our first panelist is Shri Amber Dubey. Amber is the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Civil Aviation of the Government of India. Amber is a very experienced industry person. He has over 30 years of experience in industry. For the last 17 years before joining government, he was the partner at KPMG for Aerospace and Defense. Amber, in a short span in the Civil Aviation Ministry, has made two critical changes for drones. First is the drone policy of August 2020, and the second is the manufacturing PLI policy. Our second panelist is Professor Ashutosh Sharma. Professor Sharma is a distinguished scientist. He is also one of the youngest Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar awardees in this country. He was the first winner of the Infosys Prize for Computer Science and Engineering in 2010. After his scientific career, Professor Sharma came over to the bureaucracy side. He was the secretary for the Ministry of DST from 2015 January to September 2021. During his time, he made a lot of critical policy changes, including the NMICPS policy, which led to the birth of ARTPARK, where you are all sitting today. Another policy in which he was very heavily involved is the drone policy, August 2021. So essentially, we have two of the most important people who crafted the drone policy for this country. Our third panelist is Professor Suresh Sundaram. Suresh is a faculty at IISc. He's also one of this country's top experts on drone, aeronautics, anything which flies in anywhere. So essentially, we have two people who created the policy, and we have a third person who will hopefully create companies and technology which will take advantage of that policy. Welcome everybody to this panel. Our first question to Professor Sharma. Sir, I will ask you one simple question. Name one major area where drones will have a massive economic impact.
That's indeed a great question, Subhashis. And I'm so glad that ARTPARK is organizing this workshop, this discussion on drones and how they can actually connect both in services and infrastructure. So, of course, if we were to look at the use of drones, it's been increasing really globally exponentially. Technologies and products, they always hunt in pairs or in triplets or multi-lets, if you would. So drone is an idea whose time has come, and so therefore it is flying. Is flying. Now your question is: look, we know that outside of defense, there are so many a plethora of uses for drones. Whether it is related to agriculture, it's about the health of crops, it's about the health of moisture, the health of soil, for looking at the forest, for deliveries, for infrastructural needs, for entertainment, for what have you. So it's really very, very vast, and all of them have very good impacts. I would actually focus on one aspect, and that aspect is the use of drones in surveying, in mapping, in collecting geospatial data, and then to, of course, build on that geospatial data for three purposes. So these three purposes are basically, you can say, well, the pillars are why do we do surveying, mapping, collect geospatial data, and build on it? Well, it has to do with planning, it has to do with development, and it has to do with governance. So these are the three pillars, and the impact is actually very, very wide ranging. So let me give you some examples and say, look, when we are talking about drones, of course, we are not talking only about drones. Of course, we are talking about drones, but we are talking about how they bring empowerment to different applications and what kind of impact actually this would have on our economy. And I pointed out on development, on planning, and on governance. So about drones, of course, drones, are the best way, actually very accurately survey and map. These are called survey grade drones. Many thousands of those are needed immediately, and the market would actually keep going up for them. So the drones, together with the sensors like LiDAR, they are flown, and then you collect digitally the information about the terrain. Basically about the XYZ of the topography that you are looking at. Now, once you have this topography with great accuracy, and the kind of accuracy we need today for these applications could be few centimeters, right? In fact, now a very ambitious program have started to map the entire country with an accuracy of 10 centimeters on ground. So you can imagine the ambitious task that we have, digital data which looks at every inch of what is happening out there, and then leverage all of that. Now, I think we often don't understand that it is basically geotagging of any kind of data that brings value to that data, whether it is any information like forest coverage, whether it is about the literacy distribution, it's about the distribution of medical services, it's about education, it's about demography, it's about the purchasing power, anything that you can think about. All of that data, if you collect but it's not geotagged, you don't know where it is coming from, then that data loses much of its value and its sheen. So just to explain in very simple words, the impact of surveying, mapping, and creating geospatial data, and then bringing in applications on that, developing applications, that is a huge market out there. So now, second thing that I would talk about, we said, of course, that if you want to make a dam, if you want to build a dam, you want to bring a railroad, you want to make a highway, any kind of infrastructure, or even if you want to figure out like what is the best place to put my next hospital or school, all of these decisions are greatly facilitated by having the topography, as well as all the informational layers which sit on top of that. If you are doing, let's say, disaster management, if you're saying, look, if there's a flood, where would water go? That where would that water go? How many people would need to be displaced? All of that depends on topography. So a whole lot of these, simulations, the whole lot of building of models and applications, they ride on this particular application of drones, which is surveying and mapping. Of course, surveying is picking up the topography, but mapping goes a step beyond, which means basically putting a tag, putting a name on everything that you see, which cannot be done by satellite. And of course, satellite doesn't have the same accuracy, especially in the vertical, in the Z direction, that you can bring in with drones. So that's a very brief background on what actually drones bring to this sector.
So essentially what you are talking about is a map which will be a living, breathing browser to a new economy. I think we have Shri Ambar Dubey sir online. Thank you for joining us, sir. So I'll get straight to the questions. If we have to make India a drone powerhouse in 2030, we need to build the infrastructure for that. So infrastructure will be everything in terms of UTM, drone skyways, risk management, insurance, everything. So would you like to comment on what the government is doing on the policy side of that?
Right. I'll keep it short so that otherwise can become a very long answer. See, on the policy front, to build any ecosystem, after all the big MBA terms that we use, ultimately it comes down to just three basic things, PDS as we call it: policy, demand, and supply. On the policy side, as we all know, in August, we repealed the old rules and brought in new rules, and which is completely liberalized up to 400 feet. Most of the applications just need to operate at 50 or 100 or 200 feet, but we opened up 400 feet, almost over 90% of India's landmass, okay, in August. And in September, within 3 weeks, we also got a PLI scheme approved. Then we came up with the UTM framework in October. In September, we also released the airspace map because up till now, people didn't know where to fly. And it was sort of a secret map. But then we demystified it. And of course, it's a low resolution map. So it doesn't really tell anything to our friendly neighbors up or north or west. But it at least to the nice person, the law-abiding drone user, it gives you where the red zones are. So if you avoid that, those red zones and the yellow zones, I mean, you're free to fly over almost 90%. And even the red zones and yellow zones, after a lot of lot of brainstorming sessions. They were brought down to a bare minimum around all the sensitive zones or cantonments or naval or air bases and DRDO sites, etc. So that was done in September. Then in January, you've seen our drone certification has come out. In January 26th, we also got the 5 forms because in the old rules there were 25 forms. They were brought down. 20 or 25 forms were removed. So many licenses, permits, authorizations, approvals, they were all done away with. So you were left with only 5 forms. And fees used to be 72 kinds of fees. They were brought down to just 4 fees. And these also are 3 out of 4 are just 100 rupees. And the 4th one is for a drone school, which is 1,000 rupees for 10 years, so effectively 100 rupees per annum. So that happened on 26th of Jan. On 29th Jan, you also saw a very, very big event, which is to fly a drone in the reddest of the red zone, which is the Rashtrapati Bhavan and Vijay Chowk, where we meeting retreat. You can't fly a single drone there. There's so many jammers and other equipment parked there. And we had not 1 but 1,000 drones creating those shapes. So that was something which is like a dream. We could never imagine that we'll see even 1 drone flying at Rashtrapati Bhavan. We had 1,000 of those flying. So this was January. And February, then we came up with the import policy of a lot of deliberations and discussions, and of course, many times very heated conversations. We finally have banned all drones brought in completely built unit or CKD or SKD. But at the same time, we've also made imports of components absolutely free. Okay, so that was on 9th, and on 11th, we also abolished the drone pilot license, which was given by DGCA. What we are saying is we trust our DGCA authorized drone schools. So once the drone schools give you a training certificate after that 5-day training, that is a good enough document, legal document to start flying in the country. So if you notice over the last 6 months, the government is also on 1st of February in the budget session. Also, you notice that the only things that were mentioned about aviation were only drones. There was Kisan drones and Drone Shakti and PLI, and of course the ITIs where the trainings will start. So that's on the skilling side. And last but not the least, I mean, a couple of other small things are also going to happen. But and in March, just a few days back, we also launched the PLI scheme. Because up till now, we had the approval, but the actual form and and it's just also it took a long time because we wanted to keep the form very simple. In some of the other PLI schemes, it was with no disrespect, of course, they had lots of things to ask. But the challenge given to us was, can you fit this all in one page? So the PLI application, you can just open your mobile phone and you can do it. Go to our website. There's a link there. You can just fill it up from your own phone if you have those few documents that we're asking for. So I'll stop here just to give a summary of how we have over the last 6 months. And of course, I would like to thank Department of Science and Technology, and it was headed by Professor Ashutosh Sharma. I mean, we were heavily guided, influenced, and of course, enlightened by the leadership of Professor Sharma and his team, and some of the global best practices and some of the path-breaking ideas that they gave on the policy front. That this document is by no way a Ministry of Civil Aviation document. There's it was a committee of secretaries and some 7-8 departments and many other agencies were involved. And it is through that churning process that we could actually repeal the old rules and come up with these new ones. So policy, demand side, as I mentioned, many of the government entities are now, they've been told informally, some 16 department ministries we are in touch with, and each is being encouraged to, including defense, military, because military is giving out orders by hundreds of crores. So on the demand side, we are first using government as a seed customer. Okay, so there are a lot of seed projects and RFPs are being rolled out, and 16 different ministries are being encouraged to use drones and make it almost compulsory as part of their day-to-day life for better governance, better surveillance, and better monitoring. And on the supply side, as I mentioned, there was a PLI scheme. So on the supply side, all these youngsters, these young startups, their approvals, certifications, all that has been simplified. The fees has been completely knocked down to almost bare minimum. And any issues that they face now, they have a direct access to the ministry and to DGCA and to the federations. Okay, and we are helping them out. And of course, on the supply side, the PLI scheme is going to put money in the hands of these youngsters so that they can come up with new and better products. And last but not the least, the import policy that I mentioned about, again, is a supply side intervention, both the demand side and supply side, because now the demands will come from all the other sectors which were using these imported drones, and most of them were anyway smuggled and gray from the gray market. So that will gradually go away. That's illegal. And on the On the supply side, now with those foreign drones, which are cheap drones brought in from outside, we had no control over what data or information that was flowing out of India into third parties' hands and of what use they would put to that. So that is also now taken care of. And now Indian industry now has this great opportunity to fill in the gap where these foreign drones were operating. So this is a quick summary of the ecosystem that we're trying to create. And now it's over to the startups, the academia, to come up with this huge opportunity that India provides and the funding that we are providing, and come up with the fantastic technology. The government, as I said, we are public servants, so they are the public, we are the servant. Any help you require, we are very accessible, and we'll be very happy to accept even criticism, not just ideas, even criticism. We have the humbleness or the strength to say, yes, we messed up. Yes, we made a mistake. Let's discuss and clean up the act. Over to you, sir.
Before the August 2021 policy, if I may say so, drones was a sick sector, and now it has become a sunrise sector. But what happens with such things is that ye dil mange more. So can we see self-certification of drones anytime in the near future? Because there are still some issues with NABL certification, DAN to UIN, quality control is still, they still don't know what is the so-called gold standard quality. For the smaller manufacturers, there's still a little bit of a problem. So can we see self-certification in the near future, sir? With a mandate that within 6 months you have to get a proper certification?
I don't know who planted this question. Quick answer is no. N-O, no.
Next question. On the front of creating this infrastructure.
Also build a car in my backyard. Would you allow my car to come and knock down your friends or family? Okay, so while the government is going overboard and dil mange more, so now we are asking, so now we also have a dil which is also beating, and it is also asking more. Now we are expecting the industry that we have, thanks to the Prime Minister and Professor Sharma and all the other senior leaders in the policy making front, we've gone overboard. Okay, the only two laws which have been repealed, the drone law and the farm law. And please notice the difference. The drone law has no vote bank. It's not that you would get the caste vote or the religion vote in UP or win the Punjab election by repealing the drone rules. Drone rules have been repealed purely on the strength of the technology. We are seeing, we all watch the same YouTube that people watch. We know what the geopolitical situation is. We saw the Nagorno-Karabakh, that whole Armenia, Azerbaijan, which is the first official surrender since 1971 surrender of Pakistan to India. It's the first surrender made by drones. We're seeing what is happening in Ukraine. We saw what is happening in Yemen and Abu Dhabi and Gatwick Airport and also in Afghanistan close by. So we all understand this drone technology is so powerful that not only on the science side, the agriculture, defense, law and order, even on the war side, I don't want to talk much about the defense side because that's not my domain, but the future wars will be won by the one who has the better swarm drone deterrent. The future wars will be determined by swarm drones. Okay, so we are going overboard to help out, but at the same time, we also don't want these cottage industry, ghar mein baith ke or YouTube dekh ke you create a drone, and God forbid, I mean, sooner or later the drones, now that 90% of India is green, you'll also have the drones flying into, and you saw the Jabalpur incident where the damn drone, I mean, he was using an agriculture drone with the 4 motors, 4 propellers. You never use a heavy drone with 4 propellers. The minimum is 6 or 8 propellers. So you just create a cottage industry and then you demonstrate it in this Dil Mange More concept. And then it falls on people and people get hurt, somebody's head gets broken. Now imagine a small paperweight on my table, it's just 500 grams. If it falls from 10 feet, I'm telling you, I'll become history. Now, we are not flying 500-gram drones, okay? We are flying 25, 50, 100, 200 kilo drones. God forbid if it falls on people, you can imagine, I'm sure you will not want your friends or family to be under that drone when it falls. So there will be no cottage industry on drones. We'll make the process very simple. These are right now, I mean, as I said, in 26 January, we just had the drone certification policy which has come out, and QCI, which is not under MocA, it's under a different ministry. They will outsource this work and they in turn have outsourced it to the certification bodies. And we're trying to fix things. The biggest delay is happening on the battery front. And there also we're trying to work with engage with BIS and METI, okay, Ministry of IT, to see if the battery part can be sorted out. Once the battery part is sorted out, I'm sure the TCs will, the type certificates will come out very quickly. And once the type certificate is out, as you said, can I print my own, can I register my own drone? You can. So once you have the type certificate, you can churn out thousands of drones per day. You don't have to come to Ministry of Civil Aviation or DGCA. You just go to the Digital Sky platform, and every drone that comes out of your quality control in the end of the shop, okay, all you have to do is just mention a serial number, and the system will generate its own registration number. Like in cars, you have to go to an RTO. Here, there's no RTO. The Digital Sky platform is the RTO. You go there and you just upload all your details, and that's it. You just churn out, change the serial number, and you get a new UI. You take it and you put it on that drone. Off it goes. It gets packed and sold to the buyer. So I'm sorry for giving a long answer, but sometimes people do need to understand that they're always, just in life, whether it's marriage or kids' education or taking your parents to a doctor, we always have to balance multiple conflicting issues. So while on one hand, we'll make things very, very simple, cheap, easy, and accessible, at the same time, we also have to maintain world-class quality standards. Over to you, sir.
I agree completely with you, sir. You are mentioning about a 500-gram drone falling on your head that can even be a 50 kilo or a 500-kilogram drone. So we need UTMs. Clearly, we need risk management. We need insurance. I'll ask Professor Suresh to comment on what is the state of UTMs in this country and where do you see this going? Do you think we'll be able to make one good one?
Yes, we will be. Because the current understanding of what technology behind, how they are operating, some of the challenges still there in identifying the drones when they are flying from A to B. Currently, the policy is that we register, and then once we say we are going to move from A to B, then we allow it to fly, right? Tracking these drones in flight is going to be a real challenge. Particularly when you're talking about the urban environment, right? That's where technology need to be developed to, we have technology, but that need to be installed to really identify, are you flying? Or something else is flying in the same region. That's one biggest challenge in going to be in UTM sector, right? And the lot of other technological challenges also comes in terms of realization of these UTM. I would probably put it like there are 7, some of the points are add on to the safety aspect of it also, right? There are 7 pillars in the whole process before we reach to the stage of UTM. The first pillar comes to me like, the control system itself, right? I'm going to move away from automatic operation to autonomous operation. So first of all, the users need to accept something flying over and it's not controlled by a person is flying on its phone. How acceptance in the user is going to be there. That's going to be a biggest challenge. To answer the acceptance, technology has to come in accurate flying system, right? Accuracy, not only to answer where am I, it is also to answer to avoid something comes in the front, I have to see and avoid, sense and avoid, right? The technology integrated together to make the system more reliable for me to know this person is flying and he can say where he is accurately. Then the traffic regulations can be added on top of it to project what is coming from the other side, and you can avoid information-based avoidance or sensing-based avoidance. But the other challenge comes on the electrical propulsion system itself, right? That's going to be one of the major issue in terms of feasibility of these drones to connect to Bharat. I'm just adding another point because some of these questions really make sense. When you connect to Bharat, do we have, or how fast we are going to approach to the ability of producing electrical propulsion system or associated propulsion technologies which make this feasible for a long remote distance operations, right? It's not, we are talking of a 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer operation. We are talking about a 25 kilometers, 50 kilometers or 200 kilometers operation when you are going to remote districts. This technology becomes another vital area, as Sri Ambar Dubey mentioned about battery, right? Is battery or hydrogen technology or clean fuel, which one we are moving towards, which will make this happen, right? That's another gray area to make this UAM feasible. Right? Moving from there, actuation mechanism, that's very important what he has mentioned about the safety. Every drone which operates in the sky going through the thermal and wind fluctuations, because we need to understand that we are operating in an urban environment, right? The thermal fluctuation and wind fluctuation make it more sensitive for these drones to stabilize. And they are going to continuously actuate because it's not human driven. So the actuation mechanism have to make it better and efficient so that we can just rely on the system operating in the sky, right? Coming from propulsion and actuation, the biggest challenge is going to be on certification, right? The government has made life simple and certified, but we need to really have an expert mechanism to really validate a different segment of these drones, right? What they operate, what distance they are operating, what kind of payload they are carrying, what kind of mechanism they have to avoid either by information driven or by sensor driven, right? So that defines the operational policy of my UTM segment. And finally, coming to integration of this into big and small, right? Other transportation sectors. So we are in very high level providing environment for operating these in a beyond visual line of sight, but to make it the way we are looking at in 2030, you need a typical test bed, not just one in different places, right? The test bed enables the drone manufacturer, drone researcher, and UAM operators, because the interoperability comes into picture. UAM operating in Bangalore may be different from UAM operating in Mysore. There are a lot of issues comes in terms of geo altitude. You may take off at a high altitude, you may come down at a low altitude. The different interoperability has to come into picture. It's like a car leaving from Bangalore going to Mumbai, right? So it's same way here, this interoperability in different operators also play an important role. So it's a convergence of propulsion solution, in convergence of software, safety, security, and communication comes into picture. So I think it's a much broader sense of technology required to enable good connectivity across Bharat through drones.
Ambarji, I know you have to leave early, but would you like to comment on what Professor Suresh said in terms of sophisticated testing facilities?
Right. And UTM, of course, the early thinking has started coming in. A lot of this background discussions is happening. At this moment, we're trying to build traffic because, most of these like Swiggy's, Amazons, and many other e-commerce companies, they're very keen to do it. But we are telling them to work on two fronts. One is with the military, because we can do it in some of the upper reaches near the northern borders and northeast, etc. At least the risk is less. You talk about risk management. So one way is for military, so it serves dual purpose. One is the risk is low and you're in sparsely populated areas, and those upper reaches where our brothers are on those high mountains looking at the enemy. Okay, there it takes sometimes hours and days to take food and medicines, or even to bring a injured person down, or to take medicines or blood or whatever up there, or ammunition. So the same drones first can do that, and you can perfect this flight path, sanctity, and Professor spoke about thermals, and there'll be crosswinds, tailwinds, all kinds of disturbances. Okay, and there's also low temperature and also high altitude. So all these things are can get tested with the Army, and the Army Design Bureau. I'm very thankful to Major General K.V. Jauhar, very approachable person, very forward, futuristic thinker kind of a person. He knows that the future wars will be won by these swarm drones. So that is one area where you can perfect these delivery drones and sanctity of the flight path, and also going into heavier, high capacity drones. Something first they tried with 10 into 5, 10 kg. We talk in terms of kilometer. Okay, so 10 kg into 10 kilogram into 10 kilometers, then 20 kilogram, 20 kilometers, then maybe 50 kilos to 10 kilometers. So this is a sort of different weight and distance, or the payload and distance combos that we are looking at. And a lot of experiments are doing, a lot of startups are doing fantastic work. So that is one. So the one UTM is getting tested there in a very safe environment. Secondly, on the urban side, we're telling all these agencies to first start from the outskirts of the city. So if you want to do Bangalore, don't just start from central Bangalore. Start from, say, the North Bangalore or South Bangalore, and then perfect it, do it over, say, 100, 200 or 500 flights. And once it's done, okay, and the other instruction we're giving them is to avoid what you call Papa Bravo Victor. That basically stands for people, buildings, and vehicles. So as a risk management, try and minimize your signature or your passage over people, buildings, and vehicles, because anything goes wrong. I'll be very honest. I mean, we have a very strong media and even 10 times more hyper social media. So, I mean, one small accident, and I'm telling you, with all the good intentions and all the good technology that we may bring in from the best of colleges and from IISc and from the startups, I'm telling you, we'll go back 5 years in time, because the public opinion then, or the public backlash could be sometimes more, require stricter action than would be suggested by due rationale. So one on the military side and the other on the outskirts of the city. And so we are saying go outside in. Don't just land up in the middle of Bangalore or middle of Delhi, because it's highly risky. So these are the two ways which we are trying to build traffic and then perfect the drone corridors and the separations. A lot of studies required there. What kind of horizontal, vertical, and lateral separation we require? Detect and avoid. RTH, return to home. How do you ensure that, I mean, if God forbid something goes wrong and two drones are bang in front of each other, what protocol should be followed? So this is something which is being worked on across the world. Some of the best people, there's Andhra, there's Avianco, there are many other good people who are also working with the academia and the startups and with the government and with DGC, the regulator, and with the airport authority, which is the ultimate authority controlling the air traffic control. Now, these two examples which I gave about military and about the outskirts of the city are still away from the airport. Then we'll come to the holy grail of UTM, which is this whole intermingling between UTM and ATM, the unmanned traffic management and the regular traffic management. Because when you come to the airport, I mean, they're finally coming down from 30,000 feet to ground zero. Okay, so somewhere there'll be that middle space, what you call the VLL, very low level airspace, closer to the airport, okay, where the flight paths will overlap with each other. So north of the airport, say in Bangalore, somebody wants to come from north of Bangalore to south of Bangalore, okay, and that coordination then has to be done by the air traffic control of AI. And they'll probably give you time windows and space windows through which you take the drones out, because it has to be very systematically and programmatically sort of perfected between an Indigo flight or a SpiceJet flight, and then you Lufthansa flight, and then suddenly some 10 Amazon or Swiggy drones go through, and then again the flight start. So this is for in the airport environment, but that will happen maybe 6 months, 1 year, or even 2 years down the line. So we'll follow a very simple, in government, we follow a very simple rule of crawl, walk, run, fly. So first we'll crawl, then we'll walk, then we'll run, and then we'll fly. Okay, so it will be done in a calibrated manner. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for that, sir. And to note, India is one of the very few countries in the world where you can get instant on-demand drone insurance. You're flying from point A to point B, 20 minutes flight, you give the distance. There are 7 insurance providers who provide that. So thank you for that, sir. We are certainly leading in some of the areas of technology. So I'll now, if we have Professor Sharma online again.
Insurance, and please do use it, because ultimately it will help you only. Okay, all drone operators should go for this insurance, and it's I think Propogo has done a fantastic job. Sandeepan Sen, a very active person, and I wish them all the luck, and I hope other competitors also come in. That's one. Okay, and in terms of liberalization, I guess the August policy is one of the most liberal in the world. We've done a lot of comparisons with other entities. And some of the things that are in that policy or not in the policy, because as I said, I keep telling my young friends, they keep asking me, sir, isme ye to likha nahi hai, wo to likha nahi hai. And we tell them that if something's not written in a law or policy, that's good news. So which means you can go ahead and just do it, because all rules and policies are written in negative. They say no person shall. It's like no person shall eat chewing gum and throw it in IISc Bangalore. Okay, so when you say that, I mean, if you don't write it, it's presumed that you have the basic common sense to maintain safety and sanctity and the cleanliness of the IISc campus. But in laws, you write it in negative. You say no person shall, so that when somebody does that, it becomes an offense. Because as people say, na, kahan likha hai? Kanun mein kahan likha hai? So you say yahan likha hai. It says no person shall speak loudly. Okay, so then when you speak loudly, offense banta hai. So if you see our rules, it's just an 11-page rule. series of rules, of which the rules are actually just 3-4 pages. The rest is all definitions and the statutory provisions, etc. So the rules are just 3-4 pages, and most chapters are less than half a page. So I think, I'm not trying to toot our own horn, or because a lot of these ideas have actually come from the industry. It's not that the government has, I mean, I don't understand drones beyond a certain superficial level, but a lot of these inputs come from variety of individuals, stakeholders, end users, academia, colleges like IITs, IIMs, IISc, and so Anna University, and of course the committee of secretaries, because different departments have different use cases. So it's a sum total of all that. And our policy, I'm very proud to say that as a community, as an Indian drone community, we have managed to come up with something which is easily one of the most liberal. And this is what we hear from foreign investors, and not just someone who's trying to impress us, but even people who are very, very tough talkers and straight talkers. They've said that this is easily one of the most simplest and easiest, and you can do it on a cell phone. You can take all your permissions. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. As I said earlier, it was a sixth sector before August 2021. It's a sunrise sector. So that, I think, says most for it. So anyway, if you have Professor Ashutosh Sharma online again now, sir, I have a simple question for you. You are the person who created the NMICPS program in the Department of Science and Technology. Where do you think the NMICPS program can contribute to the development of frontier technologies in this country, especially drones?
See, ICPS is a very new kind of experiment in technology missions. And how is actually relevant for drones, it will also become clear. So there are technology hubs. I know at least 3, which are working on autonomous vehicles, including drones. So this is about developing drones of different kinds for different applications, and developing those applications that go with drones and so on. A very recent example we saw in the beating the retreat ceremony, this year, when there's more than 100 drones, they made a formation. Basically, so these are one use of drones for shows, for sky shows, for entertainment, and so on purposes. Very good globally. And it is for the first time that actually India has become ready. That particular company which put up the show was incubated in IIT Delhi, and it was supported by several schemes of Department of Science and Technology. By the same time, it was also supported by the cyber physical missions hub at IIT Delhi. So all of these things work together, and these applications are coming up very, very quickly. I'm so happy to see that things that we were importing, those drones that were being used in beating the retreat ceremony, those drones, if you were to import them, each one little stuff, it cost about 70,000 rupees or upwards, and you need 1,000 of those to work together. Now, even the GPS chip of great accuracy is developed and fabricated in India for those drones with an accuracy of 5 centimeter. All the control algorithms, as well as the hardware, software, everything developed here, right? And it all happened within 1 year, 1.5 years, right? So basic point that I'm trying to drive home is that, look, when the right kind of architecture, structure, and processes in our projects and our missions are there, backed up by right kind of policies, uh, uh, you know, India can be totally Atmanirbhar. I haven't any doubt about it. Now, what is special about the structure and processes of the cyber physical mission? Or we call it ICPS, interdisciplinary cyber physical mission. Of course, cyber physical systems are interdisciplinary by definition. They are basically a bundle, they are integration or coming together of computing, distributed computing at the edge, communication, perception through sensors, autonomous decision making through machine learning and other tools of artificial intelligence, and autonomous action through actuators. So all of that is happening, and there are 25 such hubs which have been set up under the mission across the country. And I'm very happy to note the progress of ARTPARK, the hub at Institute of Science in Bangalore, taking many of these agenda forward very, very quickly. Now, as you know, the special thing about these hubs is that that they basically seamlessly integrate everything from basic R&D, which is creating the new knowledge which is required, relevant knowledge, knowledge with direction, and then the direction and relevance for knowledge comes because this hub is actually plugged into external stakeholders. For example, industry, for example, startups, all of that. So it is a seamless integration of basic R&D, applied R&D, developing technology, harnessing this technology through industry and startups, and basically, the whole chain of knowledge. The traditional way of doing things was, look, here is a center, they'll do basic R&D. Here is incubator that would incubate companies. Here is, okay, industry may walk in or not. But remember, all of these hubs are Section 8 companies with flexibility, and basically they can bring in the right stakeholders on board, which includes international connects. Right, if you want to bring in a professor, a scientist, a student, or send one abroad to get the knowledge that's required, hubs are empowered to do that. I'm also very happy to tell you that based on our discussions with National Science Foundation in the US, they made a very special program for our hubs, and it has never happened before. There's no program of an NSF US which is India centric, which means that you have partners only from India. But they said, look, if any American scientist, university, or center is partnering with these hubs, they can get up to $100,000 extra in order to drive this partnership or this cooperation. So essentially, the value and importance of cyber physical systems is globally recognized, and it is, like I say, it's an idea whose time has come. So, through our processes of hub, through our architecture, through a very flexible board that brings on board ministries, that brings on board industry, startups, academia, and everything else, we can have this vision to drive things forward. And this is happening for drones. Like I pointed out, I see each of these hubs also have an incubator. So hubs, let me tell you, another way they are different. They are not simply a geographic entity which is inward looking, which is managed only by 5 people. Right? This hub actually should be the custodian and aggregator of knowledge in that particular area of all the activities which are going across the country, so that it's not only a self-serving, if you would, not a very petty unit, but it should take the leadership role and say, look, if my hub is working on developing a certain kind of drones, I should actually be reach out and see where else in the country this activity is happening, where else can it be funded, so in order to complete the big picture. So it's not like saying, look, some of the stuff I will do myself, my colleagues will do here in Bangalore, but that's not the end of it. Second, the third aspect about hubs is that we often think about industry startups as being at the best, we think of them as being collaborators and partners. I want actually you to think of them as co-owners. You see, there's a big difference between saying, "Oh, partner, I'll make you partner, but on my conditions." Okay, basically, I have only my self-interest in mind. I don't have the interest of the theme and the objectives of the hub necessarily in mind. You see, so I'm saying it very candidly. I want this actually to percolate. I want this to be understood by everybody. That look, all the work that was being done by ministry earlier, for example, funding and so on, it has to be taken care by hub. Okay, so that if we don't succeed, we have nobody else to actually blame for it. And this is a critical point, and that is why I'm saying, look, the architecture, the structure and processes of hub is very important, but so is an enlightened leadership of the hub, coming from academia, coming from industry, coming from participation of stakeholder ministries. I haven't any doubt that if all of this actually happens, that this would be a hugely successful experiment that would be replicated in the future technology missions of the country.
Thank you very much, sir. NMICPS program has been a great boon to the country, and hopefully we can turn out a lot of successful companies out of it. So I see we are running out of time. So I will put the last question to Professor Suresh. As Shri Ambarji was saying, we have banned the import of fully assembled drones, but components are still imported because we can't make them in this country. When do you think the time will come, and if it will come, when all those components will also be made in India?
100% indigenous drones are possible in the current scenarios, except for some electronics component have to come from outside. The basic propulsion system and the structure, the flight control and software is possible.
Time period?
It's already available. That's what I would like to put it up. Already available, 100% indigenous is present, except the electronic components have to come from outside. So if you see many startups and technologies available out there in the universities as well as outside, just the question of maybe a few months, we are there.
So hopefully when this conference happens next year and then the year after that, we can report how much the indigenization percentage has gone up. Let's hope that by 2030 that number crosses 90%. Thank you all the panelists for a great panel. We could have taken some question answers, but unfortunately we have exceeded the time. So we will have to close this down now. Thank you very much, Ambarji. Thank you, Professor Sharma. Thank you, Professor Suresh. Thank you, everybody.